welcome to CAD Basics 04. Let's get some CAD started here. With that being said, we are going to work our way through number 4 here, the CAD Basics assignment that talks about some new concepts you haven't seen before, including arrays. We're going to use polygons, though those ones should be rather I guess, standard for people, anyone who's taken a math class to this point. We're also going to use one of my favorite commands in AutoCAD, period, which is offset, the super useful mirror command, and I've also put dim diameter on here. We technically have done some diameter dimensioning before this, but first time I put it down here as a formal piece, I guess. That being said, let's talk about this drawing and let's break down some of the things. The very first thing we see about this drawing is that we do have our usual 10x7 title block, and this is the last of our drawings where I'm going to ask you to have a generic title block that's just a rectangle. We're going to talk about title blocks a little bit later on and actually add a title block in that shows who drew it, who they were working for, scale, a few things like that. That being said, we notice at the bottom here that the four rectangular arrays are mirrored across the center. So that's these little triangle sets of 8 here. They're going to be mirrored across the 2 center lines, and obviously we do have another center line in here. We learned how to do that in the last tutorial. We also have all non-dependent objects are centered on the drawing. So we can actually see that we've got this rectangle, and this rectangle, and all of it is actually centered on the drawing. And what non-dependent means is that, for example, this circle here is dependent on this rectangle around it. Okay, all the pieces that aren't attached to something that you can't see a measurement of them being, you can't figure out what the measurement is, they are centered. So that's this rectangle here. That's this rectangle here. Everything else has a measurement to one of those 2 rectangles. So let's go ahead and actually figure this out. We know that we've got the first rectangle is 8 units wide and 5 units tall, and we know that the second, the smaller rectangle, is 5 units wide and 2 units tall. We can see that because of halfway to the midpoint at 2.5 and 1. We just double those numbers, and life is good from there. Alrighty, now let's see what we can do in AutoCAD. Alright, so I'm just going to jump in, and I'm actually going to go to my, my drawing 1 here, and I haven't saved it, but I'm actually going to save this as CAD Basics 03 and 04. Be very descriptive. And I say 03 and 04 because you can see that the 03 drawing from the last tutorial, it's still kicking around here. If I were to actually do this layout of it, I would line up the layout of it first, obviously turn my grid off and change my colors. I can actually change the name on these layouts at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to actually change this to CAD Basics 03 and just typed in number 2 there. That's going to bother me. Okay, let's get our naming conventions right. Let's go 03. And then on my second layout here, I'm actually going to make a new layout called CAD Basics 04. Okay. Now, this is going to turn into my new drawing. I'm obviously going to go find a new drawing in my model space. But in my model space, this is super easy because I can just start a new rectangle over here. I don't have to set up my layers or anything. I can just use what I've got. Now, in this case, it's not a bad use of the new layer. Okay, let's just type in a new title block box, 10x7. And because everything's centered in this box and doesn't really have any reference to coordinate points, we can get started this way. Now let's go ahead and draw those 2 rectangles. Now he said that one rectangle was 8x5. We're just going to go ahead and draw that in here, 8 wide by 5 tall. And then we're going to draw our second one, which we knew in here was going to be 5 wide and 2 tall. Okay, make sure I type my numbers in properly. All right, now I have some abstract art kicking around here, and I want to make sure everything gets centered in that original rectangle. To do that's relatively easy. I'm going to use a move command. Okay, my move command allows me to grab a base point of the geometric center of this object, and I'm simply going to snap it so that it matches the geometric center of the rectangle. There's one. We move this one, geometric center to geometric center. And now, just looking at my grid, it looks like I actually missed with this one. So I'm actually going to grab it and just move it out of the way for a second and try that one again. And there's nothing wrong with taking another look and making sure things are aligned. I did the second time. It still looks like it's a little bit off on my grid, but now that I look at my first rectangle, it's a little bit off on my grid too. So they're probably center aligned, and life is good there. Now, let's break our way through here and talk about the different things that we've got on this drawing and what we should do first. First thing I'm going to do on this drawing is I'm actually going to go use an array to build these triangles. And what I know about these triangles is based on this line right down here at the bottom. I have these triangles that are I have these triangles that are straight in line with the center of this circle. Center of that circle is straight in line with the edge of this rectangle. So that's easy. And I can see that straight from that point straight up is going to be 1 unit to the middle of that triangle. And that triangle is going to have a, I called it a radius because the triangle is inscribed in a circle here, circumscribed in a circle. Radius is 0.125. So let's actually put this thing together here. Okay, we zoom in on the edge here. I'm going to draw a measurement line, just using my dimensioning layer, and I'm going to draw it straight up 1 unit. Okay, that's going to give me a good spot to start this triangle. Now the triangle itself, the easiest way to draw it is by using the polygon tool. Polygon tool actually lives up here above where your rectangle tool is with a little pull down menu, and then it's going to allow me to actually select the number of sides, triangle, 3 sides. Okay, and I'm going to specify the center of the polygon, and I'm going to create inscribed in circle. We're going to do the first one here. That's going to give us our triangle. Now we can define how high it is. I'm going to line it up so it goes straight vertical up and down. And I think it was 0.25 if I remember correctly. It was not. It was 0.125. Okay, I'm going to go see if I can change that in my properties layer. It does not appear that I can, so we're just going to redraw the thing. Here, 0.125. Fantastic. I'm going to delete this line because I don't really need it. And now we're going to build the rest of the array. Now I wanted in my drawing 4 or 8 of these triangles. I want one row of 4, or sorry, 2 rows of 4. And to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to actually do a rectangular array. And now we talked briefly about those in the last video. So everyone see I have a rectangular array. Obviously I have columns, I have rows, and I have a distance between them. Now in this case I know that the distance between them vertically is going to be 0.25 from my drawing. So I'm just going to type that right into my keyboard, or into my menu up top here. And I know that the space between them in the horizontal direction is going to be 0.3. But what happens when I do 0.3 is I get this array that goes off to the right, which isn't quite what I want. Now, easiest way to look at this, easiest way to figure this out is to actually click this arrow and drag them off to this side. And what's going to happen is you're going to notice that up here at the top, now it goes, I'm about 0.3, but there's a negative sign in front of it. And that kind of makes sense with our coordinate system. We type in a negative, things go backwards. I'm going to change that to 0.3, and I'm going to change the number of rows to 2. And what's going to happen is I'm going to end up getting those exact 8 polygons that I actually wanted for my drawing. So we've got that. That's awesome. I'm just very quickly going to throw a center mark in here, and we talked about that in the last video because it's going to make my life a little bit easier at this point. Okay, oh, I need a center of a circle. Okay, I'm going to draw my first circle. Why don't we? Just so I can get the center mark, it's going to make mirroring. Actually, we can mirror without it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to mirror these objects across the center of this object, or of this drawing. So we're going to select them. We're going to type in mirror, or we're going to click the mirror command, which, by the way, lives up here in your modify panel. Okay, just click mirror. Now, the first thing mirror asks is, it actually asks you to select your objects. After you've selected them, you press enter. I didn't have to do that because they were already pre-selected. It now says specify the first point of your mirror line. And I'm going to work on the top layer first here. I'm going to flip them across a mirror line that's vertical. So I click on the midpoint of this square, of this rectangle here, and then I draw a line straight down. It doesn't matter how far the line is, but it matters that you get this little green dashed line here to show that it is vertical, because then we get an actual mirror across. It asks me if I want to erase the source object. I do not. If you say yes, it's going to remove the original object and just move it across the mirror line. I don't really want that. So now we got those two. Life is good. Let's mirror them the other way. I'm just going to show you briefly what happens when this line isn't perfectly horizontal. We end up getting something that mirrors kind of like this because it gets a random mirror line. I'm going to make sure it's horizontal for this drawing. There we go. Now we've got those triangles. Life is good on those ones. At this point, I'm actually going to go ahead and finish the outside of this rectangle here, which requires a fillet and a chamfer. Okay. Fillet and chamfer have their own little menu up here in case you can't remember the words to type in. We're going to do chamfer first because my corner I'm looking at right now is a chamfer. Notice that in AutoCAD, when you float over any of these tools, it actually tells you a little bit about them. It'll do a little pop-up box talking about how to use this particular tool. Let's click chamfer. And before we chamfer, we actually have to go down to our command line menu here, and we have to define something. That is the distance that we're actually going to chamfer. So I'm going to click distance, and it says specify first chamfer distance. In this case, that's 0.25. and then it's going to guess that the next chamfer distance is 0.25. That kind of makes sense. It's going to be even on this particular chamfer. You can do an uneven chamfer. You could, chamfer one side to 1 and one side to 2 to get a, a different angled chamfer. It's not terribly common, but AutoCAD can totally do that. I'm then quickly just going to click both of my lines. Now the fun part is, now once I've typed that distance in once, every time I chamfer from now on, it's going to assume that that is the actual size I want to cut. And it makes life really easy. Now fillet is the exact same thing. If I go to fillet, okay, fillet is going to ask me, do you want to do like radius? There's a few other options here. The one we care about at the bottom is radius. So let's click radius and let's define our radius for our fillets. Now both of our fillets on this drawing are radiuses of 0.5. So we're actually going to click 0.5 and it's going to cut off a round on this side. And again, every time we fillet thereafter, you're going to end up getting that cut off. For those of you that have taken the aviation class at Mandela, you know that all of your edges are rounded off to 1/8 of an inch, 0.125. So when I was doing some of the drawings for those projects, my fillet command was constantly set to 0.125. Anyways, now we've got some rounded edges, we've got some squared off edges. The nice thing with these is that when it comes to dimensioning them, they're actually super easy because we can actually put a radius dimension directly onto these ones, which is super nice. These ones need linear dimensions, but still. Now one of the things that some students came up and asked, and one of the last assignments when we were doing this time around was, way on your drawings and some of the assignments, some of the dimensions that you have they don't fit. Like they don't fit on my drawing. How do you make those work? I'm just going to show you how to do that. I'm just going to make the precision level for these a little bit lower. This text is way too big. You'll notice that I keep my properties menu open here on the side. That's often so that I can go manually change the text. So let's say I want to change the text height on these to 0.12 and make it a little bit smaller. Okay, I can absolutely change that right here, and you'll see that the text gets smaller. I can modify all sorts of things using this property menu. All right, we have most of a drawing. We're almost there. The only thing we have to add is something using the offset tool. And this is actually the circles in the center. We actually have, we have a polar array as well we can play with. Very nice. Now, the circle in the center, the one that I know about, I know the size of, I can actually draw out here, and I know that it has a radius of 1.575. And that's easy. Okay. One of the things I also know is that inside of it there's a second circle, and they are offset by 0.125. So your offset tool's up here at the top in your modify menu, and it's going to create an offset line. I'm just going to demo this on the square actually, here on the rectangle. If I offset, I can specify a certain distance I want to offset, and that distance is going to, here we go, let's play with this. Alright, 0.25, let's say. It's going to create another object that is the same style as the first object and then is offset from that first object by a certain distance. Now in our case, we want to go another object 0.125 away from this circle. So I'm going to click on this circle. Alright, here we go. Specify the circle, 0.125, and we create a second circle really easily right inside of it. I'm just quickly going to trim like we would before and just trim away a lot of the pieces of this that I don't need. Life is good. Our drawing looks nice. At this point I can actually do that center point thing I was talking about before and actually throw a center mark on these. Obviously it's in the wrong layer right now, but that's something we can easily fix. Okay, and now let's finish this drawing up with the final rectangular array. Okay, I'm going to create a measurement line here, a bit of a cheater line. From the center up 1 unit, because that's what the drawing suggests for this one. And we are going to create our rectangle. Sorry, not our rectangle. It is a pentagon. Awesome. We're going to go to the end of that line. Oh, number of sides, 5. Awesome. We're going to go to the end of that line, inscribed in circle, and we're going to go up here, and we're going to make this from center to edge of 0.25. Awesome. And the last thing we're going to do on this drawing, just to kind of finish it up, I'm not going to do the corners or the circles on the corner because you know all the things you need to know for them. They are circles that get trimmed in certain unique ways. What we're going to do is we're going to actually put a polar array on this one, and we're very simply going to polar array this around a few times and press enter. In that case, the defaults actually do work. As per usual, please remember when you finish up your drawing to put the drawing name, to put your name on here. Change the colors to something that's perhaps a little more readable when you get around to actually making this work, and put it in the layout view, and we are good to go. You can actually finish up your assignment just like that. And like I say, in this version I did multiple layouts, so I did a layout for assignment number 3 and a layout for assignment number 4. There's nothing wrong with that. Just when you go File, Export, make sure that you are exporting those pages one at a time as assignments. So when you go over to your options here, you can just make sure you go Export Current Layout. Otherwise it'll export all of your layouts. With that being the case, I hope you all enjoyed the CAD tutorials. I hope they are helpful to you. I hope they make the CAD Basics an enjoyable experience. Cheers, and happy CADing to y'all.